Well, to people that follow my videos and everything, I want to welcome everybody back. And I got a split screen here. Usually I have it where person's talking so on there, but in this case, I wanted you to see what was going on. Before the last 5 minutes, I've been watching these little orbs go over the top of your head from one end of the room to the other end. And I thought you were kidding when we first came on because you said, well, don't worry about this. And then I'm going, yeah, okay, right. Okay, she's got orb. And all of a sudden I'm going, no, there's orbs going. And now that we've mentioned it, they'll probably be shy and they won't come back, right? But so that'll give people a reason. Stay tuned, keep watching. See, Gail Alexander is going to be one of those presenters at the All Souls Weekend in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, this winter or fall, actually, November. And I'm presenting there and doing a workshop. And then I looked at the co-presenters, of which I think there's 6 or 7 of us. And there's psychics, there's clairvoyants, there's mystics, there's healers, there's therapists, there's artists, there's intuitives, there's, oh, that's you. But everybody else is like that too. It's like the woo-woo train came and all of us are on that train, we get off. So I'm looking at the past events that they've had this event there before and looking at the people they've had come. And this is like a who's who of psychics and mediums for one thing. Some of the top people, especially in the Great Lakes area, Chicago, there's this Illinois, Wisconsin, California connection, kind of like I noticed it. That seems to be the 3 hotspots, a few people from Arizona, but it's like, that's the psychic hotspot. It's kind of like there's the Bermuda Triangle and then there's the Lake Geneva Triangle. It's like, anyway, so I wanted to introduce you to some new people that are watching my videos and some people that might be interested in attending this, or because this video will be up for years, they'll be able to look at your website and they'll be able to talk to you directly and get counseling. I think you do acoustic records, you do healing, you do medium work. All right. So I would like you to kind of talk to us, tell us what you do, why you do it. And if you got some stories. And I said, if I really want to put you on the spot, I say, okay, read me. Come on, where's the ghost, right? Who's on my other side? But I wouldn't do that to you, put you on the spot. But if you felt like it.
I'm okay. If you want me to read you, I'll be happy to do that.
Okay, you sure you do? Okay, because you really don't. Okay, honestly, you know nothing about me.
I know nothing about you. I've never met you before.
Read my book, watch my videos. We just got introduced on the phone, 5 or 10 minutes total. That would be real. Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
That wasn't good. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you that a week ago, so you could go research it. So I'd be impressed if you could come up with anything. And if you couldn't, you can't, because I know that these powers and these abilities, it's not something you just go boom, there it is. So sometimes, it's possible you go, you know what, I ain't getting nothing, and I accept that.
How personal can I get? That's
yeah, go ahead, try it.
Okay. So usually how I do readings that seems to work, especially when I'm doing quick ones, is I look at people's energetic system, and my friends have named it chakra pops. So whichever chakra needs the first, needs to come through first. So how I usually start is I ask you to say your first and last name for me out loud. Okay. And don't cross anything, because you just crossed and shut down your power chakra, which was really interesting.
Good catch, because this always closes everything off. Good catch. Hang on a second. I had my feet crossed. Let me uncross my feet. All right. Bill McDonald is what I go by, or Reverend Bill McDonald. Legally, William Hector McDonald Jr., but nobody goes by that except the law. If I'm in trouble when they pull me over, they look at my driver's license. William Hector McDonald, yes. Or my wife when I'm in trouble. William, but Bill McDonald.
Okay, so it's really interesting because the one that popped the first for you is your second chakra, which is who you are in the world. And that's the one that you're the most comfortable with. And that's what you feel comfortable putting out to the world. And then the next one that pops is your throat chakra, which is your voice, expression, will, how you say things. Those are the 2 that you're the most comfortable with. But it's really interesting. And my spirit team gave me this lecture once on primary colors. what do orange and blue make? They make kind of a shade of purple, right? And purple is our connection to everything that is. So as you use your voice and as you're truly who you're meant to be, your connection to everything that is gets stronger. And then it makes you want to continue to move forward on this path. And oh, my whole head is vibrating, and doing everything that you were meant to do. Because you've only scratched the surface with what you're going to end up doing yet. And even though it feels like it's been a lot for you so far, this is just the beginning. You're going to be on a bullet train.
Well, I'm 77 and a half, so there's not too much bullet train still in the station. It's on the rails.
You know, you'd be surprised as what's going to happen and what's going to pop and how it's going to come in. And you might be doing things a little bit differently than you're doing now, but you're going to reach a bigger audience.
Okay. All right. So when you go out into the world, and I'm assuming this event that you're doing in Wisconsin is one of many you do a year. You're going to psychic fairs. You're going to I'm trying to think of what you're doing, webinars, perhaps. You're doing all these kind of things out there. What are people looking for? They come to you, obviously they come to you, they have a spiritual need. I think that's classic, but it's like they want to know about something, somebody's died, something's bothering them. They're looking for meaning and purpose in their life. You do counseling. Do you direct people towards those things? Like most people still, even no matter what their age is, I still run into people still looking, well, what's my purpose of life? It's like,
I find that when I do readings, pretty much most of the time, like if I were to do a reading for a half an hour or longer, 9 times out of 10, people start crying. Because one of the things is when you see somebody who truly is an intuitive, or to use the word psychic, I'm reading things about you that you've been thinking about, pondering, and you're like, how does she know that? How did she get to that? And then people usually start crying because it's validating and it's genuine. And they feel that connection and they feel like they're part of it. And so, like, I've had a lot, like I had one reading I was doing, and I'm like, you're going to lose your job, but don't worry, in 6 weeks, you'll be getting a new one. And she wrote me after the 6 weeks, she's like, you are not kidding. I lost my job the next week. And then in 6 weeks after that, I had a new job.
do you find that, because I'm just going from my own world that I'm in, you say things to people and it's unfiltered. It just, you say something. You didn't think about it. It wasn't premeditated. Like, I know this could happen. I'm going to tell the person. You just say something and then, you did you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. For those that are watching that, put it on replay, go back, watch that. It's just, anyway, before this thing came on, they were shooting all over the place. But now I don't even know where I'm at. But
We were talking about like a good reading and stuff like that. Like I've seen psychics in the past who said they're psychics, or people who pull tarot cards. I will be honest with you that a good psychic who uses tarot cards doesn't need the cards. They're reading the energy and the information. So when you're seeing somebody who's really just going by the cards, chances are that's how they're getting all their information. They're probably not that connected. You know, and there's a lot of people, and I had a really hard time with this, is people, like I would go to people and I'm like, you're a fraud. You're taking money from all these people and you're not giving them anything. And then I had friends who were going to psychics and said, you need to pay me $3,000 to remove a curse that's been placed on you. So I've had so many people who end up seeing me and they're like, oh my God, it's like night and day. Like, you are genuine. And I don't report to make anyone believe anything. Like, I'll just put things out there, take what you want, throw the rest away. I don't have to convince you of anything. I'm just here as the conduit to give you the information that wants to come through right now.
so when I was going with that before, I was distracted by the flying orbs. Plus, there's not an angel behind you at the moment. Well, there may be, who knows? when you're doing this work, I'm assuming that because the ones people I talk to that are I believe and trust in, it's never premeditated. It's never scripted. It's not. In other words, they say something, and it's like that even surprises them that they've said it, and they don't know they're saying it. And if it's not verified right away, like people go, "What are you talking about?" No, and then 3 weeks later, somebody comes back. By the way, I did research, and this did happen, and blah blah blah, and which validates it. But when you're saying it, you don't necessarily get immediate validation from people, right?
And there's I don't know why, but I want to tell like all this stuff related to religion right now. I did a reading with a priest, and he's like, have I ever had any past lives? I can see people's past lives too, oftentimes. So I'm like, yeah, you were a priest in Rome. This was your name. And he looked it up, and there was a priest in Rome at that time who he identified. I can't remember what the name was now, but he's like, oh my God, that really fits. And it makes so much sense for how I think about things now. So sometimes when we can cue into a past life, and when I'm doing readings, past life stuff comes up because it's to help us break through what we need to break through in this lifetime so we can be free of that from a past life. Like Brian Weiss, who wrote the famous book, Many Lives, Many Masters. He's a psychiatrist, and he would put people in hypnosis, and they would go back to past lives, and then they would come back and their obsessions were gone, or their anxiety was decreased tremendously. So our past lives, they're still with us because everything is happening simultaneously. So we need to clear those things so we can be freer currently.
Yeah, that's what people don't understand, that everything is simultaneous. That's how you can cure things. Like if you drowned in a lifetime and now you're afraid of water, or you fell off a cliff, you're afraid of heights, or whatever karmic thing that is bothering you. That's why hypnosis seems to work, or regressions, or getting a reading where somebody goes into that. And so I'm assuming that some of your work takes you into actually getting in touch with the Akashic records.
Yeah, the Akashic records are your books of life, everything that you've ever done in past lives or future lives. Now, when you're doing a specific Akashic record reading, the records will not answer questions that are going to impact your free will. Like if you ask a question, am I going to do this or do this? They won't answer that because we are on the planet of free will right now, and they can't intervene. They might give you suggestions, or maybe talk about something that will help you make your decision, but they won't give you a yes or no. And that frustrates so many people because that's why am I going to have a boyfriend in the next 3 years? Well, are you going to do the work that you need to do to get the boyfriend that's coming for you?
There you go.
And so
Fill out any job applications, right?
my name that I gave myself is the no nonsense intuitive, because I'll just tell it straight out. I don't sugarcoat it. If it comes through, I'm going to tell you what it is, regardless of how it comes out. So last year at All Souls Weekend, I got to do something different, which was really fun. The first year I picked a card for everyone and gave everyone a really quick reading that I was there. Last year, we put everyone's name in a bag and we just randomly picked them out. And then I just gave everyone that they could ask a question and whatever came through. And it was just such a fun experience because sometimes my spirit team is really funny. And so, it was so much fun and everybody had a great time, and, it went by really quick, but boy, it's amazing how many people I could get through in a half an hour.
I got a feeling that I'm looking forward to this as a presenter. I'm going to do my thing, but I'm looking forward to afterwards watching all of you in action. It's like, oh, this is fun. So let's start with this, because I know you got a whole bunch of books that you've written, and you wrote what appears to be an autobiography titled, if I got this right, I Don't Know How I Know, I Just Know. Is that the right title? So obviously you just didn't wake up one morning and everything came. What was the process of discovering your talents, discovering your gifts? What happened?
Okay, so the story is in the book. Here's the book. I when I was little, I was very, very psychic when I was little. And there's two events that happened that caused me to shut my gifts down. One, my mom had a stillborn and told us that the baby was just in the hospital. And I put my arm around her and said, the baby died. It's in heaven with God. Why do you keep telling me it's still in the hospital? And then I told them that my grandfather was going to die of a major coronary, and he died 2 weeks later. So after that, I wasn't allowed to talk after that because it scared people because I was extremely accurate. So I basically didn't use my gifts at all for 20 years. And then I was in grad school. And so my grandfather that died when I was 5, this was all when I was 5, I was in grad school in a Catholic hospital eating lunch. And my grandfather, who died when I was 5, was sitting across the room from me. And I could never remember what
you see in a college lunchroom.
it was a hospital lunchroom, but and so I didn't understand why he was there because it was just all starting to come back. And then I kept trying to call my parents, like, what's going on? What's going on? It turns out that my other grandfather was having a heart attack that day. And so that's when everything started to come back after that. And then I took an opening to intuition course, and these stories are all in the book. And that was like being on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride for 7 days. I didn't sleep. I mean, all the gifts just came back at once. And like we did this meditation, I saw my third eye open. I saw how the pyramids were built. I saw how the world was created. I saw DNA. I saw the problems with DNA. And then ever since then, I've just slowly been trying to figure out what to do with all that information. So a lot of it is in the books. Like the first 2 books, I don't know how I know, I just know, and I still know what I know. And the third one will be, I want to forget what I know. No, I'm just kidding. Are oftentimes experiences that I had, and then there's channelings, and then there's meditations, and then there's a mandala that I drew for each section to hold the vibration and frequency of that section.
So let's talk about frequency, because every healer I know, I mean, the real deals, everybody talks about it's all energy work. It's all frequency within you and within the other person. And it's channeling the frequency and channeling the energy. Is that kind of how you see it? And do you do that when you're healing work?
Yes, I think that one of the ways that I explain it is there's a reason that people are attracted to different healers, different psychics, and different mediums. The people that you're attracted to are because the frequency matches. It's a good vibrational match. For some people, I frustrate some people because I won't sugarcoat it and I won't like put a spin on it. It's going to come through. And I'm going to just tell you whatever it is without filtering it in any way. So I think that everybody, and that's why like at events like All Souls Weekend, it's so great because each one of us that's presenting has a different frequency and a different vibration. So you don't know who in the audience is going to resonate with which one of us. And that's what's really cool. Some people they might get bored or frustrated with, and they don't know why. And that's because they're not hearing what the person's saying based on their frequency and vibration. And just connecting sometimes even with that one presenter can make all the difference in the world to someone's journey.
Well, yeah, you make a valid point that, you're going to attract people that are resonating with you. It's like you're a tuning fork. And other forks that can resonate with that or wish to or feel inclined to. So I think you're right on that. That's an aspect. That's why there's so many differences in people. It's like not every psychic's the same. Not every priest is the same. Not every mother, father's. Everybody is totally different. And it's differences that will attract people to you. And so that's a beautiful thing. I really like that idea. All right, so you're in this hospital. You see your grandfather. You find out later on that he's basically a messenger telling you that there's something coming. That's what I'm guessing. And how'd you put that in? How'd you digest that? I mean, what was your
shut it off. I just shut it all off again. I didn't digest it for a really long time. And then in my late 20s, I think it's in my 30s. I can't remember. I think it might have been my early 30s. I ended up in this opening to intuition course. And that's when it really, so it was 20 years ago. So yeah, so 29, 30. And that's when it started to come back. The first day of the course alone, I had so when in the beginning, when I would start to get high frequency information, my nose would bleed. The first day alone, I had 6 nosebleeds. So
No, it's as if,
luckily that stopped.
because people listen to that and they go, no, and I'm telling you, as a child, when I had all kinds of stuff for about 7 years, that was nonstop nose bleeding. And so I know what you're saying, but you're the only other person I've ever heard say that, relating it.
I also went through a period, and so I wrote this book a couple of years ago called Jesus and the Jewish Girl, because in the opening to intuition course, we were sitting around the fire the first night of the class, and all of a sudden I felt this golden light go all the way around me. And then when I opened my eyes, I saw Jesus coming out of the fire. And Jesus has been with me ever since then. So I called it Jesus and the Jewish Girl because I was brought up Jewish in this lifetime, which I just find really funny. So Jesus was my guide for years. And well, Jesus is still one of my guides, but every time I would close my eyes, I would see him. That doesn't happen anymore, but it was Mother Mary who went all the way around me. And I had this profound opening the first night of class. And then everything else just started coming back. I started working. My teacher at the time said to me, do you have to bring such a large entourage with you from the other side everywhere you go? And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, don't you see it? I said, I don't know any different. This has been what it's been my whole life. You're making it seem like this is new. It's not.
So I'm assuming that having this kind of life is it's hard on a family relationship thing, unless you have some really, really, really. The old expression in the Bible is what? You're never a prophet in your own hometown. I'm just throwing this out there because I've interviewed a bunch of people that are psychic and mystic, and it's like when they're home, they're taught to be humble because nobody's listening to their advice. So I'm assuming that you're out there in the world getting validated, but at home, you're a regular person. You're a mother.
My friends all validate me a lot. My family, not so much. My family has always had a difficult time with it. Both of my parents have transitioned, and I knew the exact day both of them were going to transition. It's always good when the psychic's arguing with hospice. That's a funny story. Can I tell it? Is that okay? So my dad was really sick. My mom died on August 14th. And I thought for sure my dad was going to die on August 14th too. But I'm like, Dad, please just don't die on the same day as Mom. I can't have you both die on the same day. So hospice is like, he's nowhere ready to go. And I'm like, okay. This was like this August 11th or 12th. I get the phone call from hospice August 14th, and they're like, he made the turn. It's him, and it's going to be any time now. And so, and then I knew as the day went on that it wasn't going to be the 14th. And so at 4:30 in the morning on August 15th, my entire room lit up like the horizon. And I'm like, oh, my father just transitioned. The thing I didn't know is the grandfather who had a heart attack when I was little died on my father's birthday. My father died on his birthday, which was August 15th.
Wow.
So that's in the book. I Still Know What I Know. I talk about every single coincidence that happens. Like when my dad was sick and in the hospital, and they kept saying he's going to be fine. And I just kept saying, I knew he was never coming out of the hospital. And trying to argue with them just didn't work, so I just gave up. I went to the grocery store because I had no food in my apartment, and the bill was $50.19. My parents' phone number for 45 years ended in 5019. And my dad was sending the message to me, I'm going home.
Let's talk about this because I'm not a believer in coincidences. If you really are open, you find that coincidences are more than that at times. Sometimes there's just coincidence, but
There's such thing as coincidences.
there's everything happens, right? It's like, so in your life, is there something that, like in my life, an owl, this looks like if I see an owl, I hear an owl, somebody statue of an owl, a picture of an owl, a real owl, whatever. It's always like a message. Things are going. I get a message. It clears something up that's going on in my life. Do you have anything like that? Frequent numbers coming, or an animal, or a symbol of any kind?
Different things for different situations. Sorry about that. I thought I shut that off. Different things for different situations happen to me. When something's really true, my head starts to vibrate. The left side of my head vibrates, and then I really have to pay attention to that, which it's done several times while we've been talking. But they also wanted me to share the story about my mom's transition, if that's okay. So when my mom was transitioning, the day she was transitioning, she was back in the hospital, and I saw my great aunt reach down to take her. And my mother clearly said, I will not, and this was like at 6:00 in the evening. And I said, my mom said to me, I'm not going to go with you here. You need to leave. She's like, I'm leaving at 9:03 p.m., so you have to leave. I'm like, okay. So my friend came to sit with me while I was there. And at 10 to 9, I looked at my friend and I'm like, we have to leave now. And she's like, why? I'm like, my mother will be transitioning in 15 minutes. And she's like, right. So I go all the way downstairs. I just wanted to run back up and be there, but it was clear that my mother wouldn't go. So sure enough, her death certificate says 9:13 because no one was in the room, but she died at 9:03. So I went home and I just waited for the phone call.
That must have been hard on you, though.
Well, it was hard because everyone else in my family who, at that time, my dad, my brother, and my uncle, who didn't necessarily believe in my gifts. And I'm like, Mom is going to transition today. And they're like, no, she's going to be okay. She's going to come out of this. And I'm like, no, she's not. So, I had to have the discussion about death with both my parents, like what happens when you die. And those are difficult conversations to have. But, they didn't really want to talk to anyone. They didn't really want to get counseling. And I'm like, I'm not going to let you stay in your fear around this because I want you to have a more peaceful. I didn't impose my views on them. I just said, this is what I believe, and this is what I've seen when other people have transitioned. Take what you want and move the rest away. And there's one more story about death and transitioning. My grandmother, who I was really close to, was diagnosed with cancer, and she was on hospice. And she was very close to her doctor, who promised to come visit her, but he was on vacation. So hospice is like, well, her whole body's shutting down, but her brain is like fighting everything. And I said, she's waiting for her doctor to come. They're like, no. I'm like, I am telling you, because she woke me up from a sound sleep saying, I'll be transitioning very shortly. And I'm just waiting for her doctor. They leaned over, they whispered to her, your doctor called, he would want you to be at peace. She died an hour and a half later.
Now, have you ever you were talking about your mother's transition, and you must have seen that on your screen right behind your head that shot straight up the orb. Anyway, so I was going to ask you a question. Does she visit you? Does she give you signs? So I won't ask that. We just saw evidence of that, I believe. But we are looking at a lot of interesting things going on in the world right now. And I'm a real believer in the positive. I'm not a doomsdayer. I really think we're going to survive all this and we move on and things get better. But are you seeing anything on the horizon? Are you seeing anything that's coming up that you think America or the world needs to look at? Is there things that concern you, or
There's always things that concern me. And I'm going to answer your question this way, because I was just doing I do a podcast once a week called All Things Metaphysical Podcast on YouTube. It's so weird to plug myself. But anyway, we were talking yesterday because my co-host Kelly got information about the planet heating up. And I want people to really stop and think about it, because I've talked about this for years, right? Using our cell phones. It's not like a landline where it's going through the line to another phone. We are literally beaming what we're saying to satellites, and then they're beaming it back to the planet. So think about people who are screaming and yelling and upset. It gets beamed out, and then we're beaming that all back to us. We are literally heating up our planet with all the anger that's going on. So if I can leave, so what we were talking about yesterday is that people really need to practice compassion and kindness and love and grace. Those are the things that are going to help us move our planet in a different direction and move humanity in a different direction. There's lots of things on the horizon that aren't very pleasant, and we have the ability as a human consciousness to change that. When you think about the world, you see the world like when you're in it as countries and states and things like that. But if you see the world from above, it's one planet, one humanity. And we seem to, sorry, I'm on my soapbox, we seem to forget that. And so that's the global thought process we need to get back to, is that we're all interconnected.
which gets us down to the basics of life? Love. I don't know. That's my basic bottom line for everything. It's love and compassion. Problems will come and go. We've had problems since the beginning of creation. There's those things being destroyed, being rebuilt. It's just the nature of things. So is there some personal philosophy or things that you kind of like to share with us that you'd like to leave people listening to this with? Is there some direction or spiritual gems that you'd like to kind of share? What have you learned?
The things that I believe in that I try and practice is, one, kindness. Am I always great at that? No, especially when I'm talking to Amazon customer service. I do not have a stellar record with dealing with Amazon customer service and staying calm. But I think that the most important thing is to be true and authentic to yourself. Not everyone has to believe what you believe. And I think it's important for you to stand up for whatever it is that you believe. Like, I know a lot of people think I'm crazy. And, they're like, you can't really do that stuff. You can't really read people. You can't really do that. I was a therapist for 30 years. And all the patients figured it out that I worked with, that I was extremely intuitive. I never said whether I was or wasn't, but my nickname became Guru Gail. So they figured it out, is that I embody a lot of what we would consider Christos or Christ energy. And so people just feel very comfortable with me right off the bat. They don't know why. I know why. It's because of the energy that I carry, going back to our conversation about frequency and vibration. And so I get a lot of people who never had readings before, and they're terrified. And those are a lot of the people I get. Or I get the people who won't say anything and are testing me to see if I can really read them or not. There's only one person that I ever did a reading for that I refunded her money. And it wasn't that I was wrong about anything I said. It was that she was unwilling to hear anything I said. And I wasn't going to just argue with her I did for about a half an hour. And I said, you know what? You need to find somebody else who you resonate better with. I'm going to refund your money because this wasn't helpful at all. And I don't believe that people need to have readings every 2 or 3 weeks. We don't change that quickly. So if people call me and said, I need you to do another reading, I said, give it a few more weeks. Things really need to change. I'm very responsible that way and ethical that way. It's probably my counseling background, but I just think that people need some time for things to settle and percolate. And so if you're going through a really hard time, one of my favorite quotes is something to the effect, if you come to the edge of all you know and you take that leap, don't worry, you'll either hit the ground or you'll land on something soft. And my other favorite quote, I have 2 others, is by Soren Kierkegaard. This is basically my philosophy of life. Life must be lived forwards, but only understood backwards.
Cool.
And the other one is, if I could give you the ability to see yourself as others see you, not as you see yourself. So
how do you see you going forward? What defines your purpose for the next decade or decades? Because I'm assuming that you're kind of in a self-reevaluation phase every period. You're not static. You're evolving, changing. So things and how you feel about things, how you see things. So from where you're at now, what do you kind of see and project as your purpose? Where are you going?
I think my purpose is to teach, but the way that I teach is through example. So I like to sometimes, like in the podcast, I'll talk about things I've gone through and then how will that then help other people, or what did I learn along the way to do that? I'm definitely a teach by example type of person. Where do I see myself 10 years from now? Hopefully being authentic and genuine. Other than that, I don't know. I try not to put parameters around it.
Well, I'm going to be spending time with you and others, and Amy and Jen and all the other people that show up for this retreat. But I'm looking forward to hearing what you're doing there, actually, with your program. And so I appreciate you sharing this today, because I have no clue what you were going to be doing there. And everybody I'm interviewing that's attending this thing, you're right about different vibrations. Even though theoretically they're all healers, theoretically they're all psychic, theoretically they're all mediums. No, they're all totally different, and they're doing different kind of energy work. So you're coming back. You've done this number of years. I'm assuming you've been there a few times. So you've seen the change and evolving, what's going on there. So I look forward to that. If you'd like to leave us some parting words, and if you want to plug your other books or your art, because you're an artist. And by the way, the kind of art you do has something to do with energy and all. Can you explain your art in that process?
This is an actual funny story. So I was in this opening to intuition course, and the teacher said, we're going to draw gift mandalas for each other. I threw the biggest temper tantrum that you've ever seen, saying, you can't make me do this. I can't draw. I don't want to do this. There's no way. And I went on for 45 minutes. And so then, finally I'm like, fine, I will do the meditation and I'll draw the picture. So I get this guy in the class who also has a lazy eye, and they give me this very medical picture, which my picture looked different than everybody else's in the group. And so I'm like, well, you're supposed to put it on a record player and watch it go around. It's to rebalance your eye so that you're, and he didn't like it. So then I didn't draw for a while, because that really put me off trying and scared me. But it was a gift that was definitely supposed to come through. So they would back up in my head till I actually had to sit down and draw. So there would be some nights where I'd draw 4 huge ones like this big. In the beginning. Now, they come through. It depends when. Like in 2020, I made a book of every picture that I drew in 2020 called The Awakening of 2020, a Mandalic Journey. It's just a picture book of every single picture that came through. I put it in sections, but in chronological order to show you how we progressed through that and what we were supposed to learn from COVID and everything that we went through. It was here to teach us how to be as a humanity. We did well at times and we failed at other times. And we're going to continue to keep getting lessons like that until we learn them. So if anyone wants to see any of the mandalas, you can go to my website, Gail-Alexander.com.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity of doing this interview. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, now you got me curious. I'll have to get some excerpts from your book and read it. So blessings and peace to you. I will be seeing you shortly. For people that want to get counseling with you, can they get that information from your website?
Yeah, I'm not really doing counseling, but I am doing intuitive sessions or coaching sessions or healing sessions. Yes.
Okay. To me, that's all count. It's like you're a coach.
Yeah.
Spiritual coach, hey, coach, what do I need to do? So basically, you're not spoon feeding people what to do. You're opening up their own tools, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
All right. So blessings to you, Gail. Thanks for spending a few minutes on this, and I appreciate it. And I hope people are curious and they go to your website and they're curious and they go get your book and read it. So God bless you.
Thank you.